Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. Most people move through life believing that power comes from speaking louder, reacting faster, and being constantly visible. From an early age, we are conditioned to explain ourselves, defend our choices, announce our plans, and prove our worth through words. The world rewards noise, so people learn to be noisy. But very few ever discover what exists beneath the noise. Silence is where you return to yourself. When you become silent, something unusual happens. Your energy stops scattering. Every time you speak unnecessarily, every time you react emotionally, every time you argue to be understood, a small portion of your inner power leaks out. Over time, that leakage becomes exhaustion. You feel tired not because life is hard, but because you are constantly giving yourself away. Silence closes those leaks. It allows your thoughts to settle. It slows the racing mind that jumps from worry to worry, from comparison to comparison. In silence, you are no longer performing for the world. You are no longer trying to control how others see you. You are simply present. And presence is powerful. Most people fear silence because it forces them to face themselves. In noise, you can hide. In distraction, you can avoid. But in silence, there is nowhere to run. You hear your true thoughts. You feel your real emotions. At first, this can be uncomfortable, but discomfort is not danger. It is honesty, and honesty is the foundation of transformation. Silence teaches you restraint. Not everything needs a response. Not every opinion needs to be shared. Not every emotion needs to be expressed immediately. When you stop reacting, you start choosing. And choice is freedom. A silent person is not empty. A silent person is full. Full of awareness. Full of observation. Full of inner stability. They watch before they move. They listen before they speak. They understand before they judge. In silence, you begin to notice patterns that were invisible before. You notice how people reveal their intentions through behavior, not words. You notice how situations unfold naturally when you don't interfere with ego. You notice how often problems solve themselves when you stop forcing solutions. The world is constantly speaking, but it speaks quietly. Only those who are silent can hear it. When you are silent, your intuition grows stronger. Intuition is not magic, it is accumulated awareness. It is the mind processing information beneath the surface, free from emotional noise. Silence sharpens this inner guidance. You begin to feel when something is right and when something is not, without needing logical justification. This is why silence often precedes clarity. Think about moments in your life when everything suddenly made sense. They rarely happened in chaos. They happened in stillness. Late at night, early in the morning, in moments when the world was quiet and your mind was open. Silence reconnects you with that state. It also changes how others perceive you. When you speak less, your words gain weight. When you don't explain yourself, people project depth onto you. When you don't chase attention, attention begins to find you. This is not manipulation. It is human psychology. Noise creates familiarity. Silence creates mystery. People are drawn to mystery. They respect what they cannot easily access. A silent presence feels grounded, calm, unshaken. In a world addicted to reaction, non-reaction looks like strength. But silence is not passive. It is controlled. It is intentional. It is the difference between weakness and restraint. Anyone can shout. Anyone can react. Anyone can speak without thinking. But it takes discipline to remain silent when ego wants to prove something. That discipline builds inner authority. When you master silence, you stop seeking validation. You stop needing approval. You stop asking the world for permission to be yourself. You move differently. You walk slower. You speak softer. You decide faster. And paradoxically, life starts listening to you more. Silence also teaches patience. In a culture of immediacy, patience feels unnatural. We want instant results, instant recognition, instant reassurance. Silence trains you to wait without anxiety, to trust without tension, to allow things to unfold without gripping them tightly. This patience is not weakness, it is confidence in time. A silent mind understands that growth happens underground first. Seeds do not announce themselves. They grow in darkness, quietly, consistently, and then one day, they emerge stronger than anything that grew too fast. Your life works the same way. When you keep your plans private, they are protected. When you keep your goals quiet, they mature. When you move silently, you avoid unnecessary interference, opinions, doubts, envy, and projections from others. Silence becomes a shield. It protects your focus. It protects your energy. It protects your direction. In silence, you also learn emotional control, not suppression, but mastery. You feel emotions fully, but you do not let them command your behavior. You understand that emotions are temporary signals, not permanent truths. This emotional stability is rare, and rarity creates value. Most people live at the mercy of their feelings. A silent person observes feelings like weather, passing, changing, informative, but not defining. This creates inner calm even during external chaos. Calm is contagious. When you are calm, others slow down around you. Conversations become deeper. Conflicts dissolve faster. Opportunities feel safer approaching you. People trust calm people. They feel secure around those who are not reactive. This is how silent power spreads without effort. Silence also teaches humility. You realize how little needs to be said. How often silence communicates more than words. A look, a pause, a presence. These carry meaning that language often cannot. You begin to understand that wisdom does not shout, it waits. And as you wait, life reveals itself. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop trying to control perceptions. You stop exhausting yourself by managing every detail. Instead, you align, you cooperate, you allow. Silence creates space, and space invites flow. In that space, your mind clears, your body relaxes, your decisions align. You stop moving from fear and start moving from understanding. This is where true power begins, not in dominance, not in noise, not in control, but in centered awareness. Silence brings you home to yourself. And once you are home, nothing outside you can shake you easily. This is the quiet power you forgot you had. Success does not arrive through noise. It arrives through alignment. Most people misunderstand this. They believe success comes from pushing harder, speaking louder, competing more aggressively, and constantly reminding the world of their ambitions. But this approach creates friction, and friction slows everything down. Silence removes friction. When you are silent, you stop chasing success and start attracting it. You shift from force to focus, from urgency to intention. This shift is subtle, but it changes everything. A silent mind thinks clearly. It does not panic under pressure. It does not rush decisions just to feel productive. It waits, observes, and chooses with precision. This precision is what separates effort from effectiveness. Many people work hard. Few people work accurately. Silence sharpens accuracy. When you are constantly talking, reacting, and explaining, your attention is divided. Your energy is scattered across too many directions. But in silence, attention gathers. And where attention gathers, momentum builds. This is why silence becomes a magnet. People who are internally quiet move with certainty. They don't need to announce what they are doing because they already know where they are going. Their confidence does not depend on feedback. Their motivation does not depend on applause. This independence is powerful. Success is drawn to those who are self-contained, those who are not desperate for external confirmation, those who are not shaken by delays or distracted by comparison. Comparison disappears in silence. When you stop measuring yourself against others, you regain your natural rhythm. You stop rushing to match someone else's timeline. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling pressured to perform. Instead, you begin to move at your own pace, and your pace is always the correct one for you. In silence, you notice how much energy comparison was draining from you, How often you doubted your progress simply because someone else seemed ahead. How often you underestimated yourself because you were watching someone else's highlight instead of your own path. Silence returns your focus to your lane, and in your lane, progress accelerates. Opportunities often arrive quietly. They do not shout. They do not demand attention. They appear as subtle openings, an idea that feels right, a conversation that sparks possibility, a moment where timing aligns unexpectedly. Loud minds miss these moments because they are too busy seeking validation or proving effort. Silent minds recognize opportunity instantly because they are present. Presence is a success skill. When you are present, you sense when to act and when to wait. You understand that not every opportunity is meant for you, and not every delay is a setback. You trust discernment over impulse. This discernment protects you from wasted effort. Silence also changes how challenges interact with you. When you stop reacting emotionally, problems lose leverage. When you don't argue with reality, reality stops resisting you. Many obstacles persist only because they are fed with attention, emotion, and frustration. Silence starves them. A silent response often ends conflict before it begins. A calm decision often prevents mistakes that panic would create. A pause often saves months of correction. This is why silence looks like wisdom. People begin to notice this. They may not understand it, but they feel it. Your calm unsettles chaos. Your steadiness creates trust. Your restraint signals strength. Eventually, people start listening more closely when you speak because you don't speak often. Words gain value through scarcity. In a world flooded with opinions, silence becomes credibility. When you finally share a thought, it carries weight. When you give direction, it feels grounded. When you commit to something, people believe you. This belief opens doors. Success flows toward those who are reliable, not reactive, focused, not frantic, quiet, not invisible, but intentional. Silence also helps you see long-term. Noise traps people in short-term thinking, quick wins, immediate gratification, surface-level achievements. Silence allows depth, it allows strategy, it allows patience. Patience is misunderstood. It is not waiting without action. It is acting without anxiety. When you are patient, you build foundations instead of chasing outcomes. You invest in skills, discipline, and awareness. These investments compound quietly, just like real success does. Most success stories look sudden from the outside, but internally, they are the result of long periods of silent preparation. Nobody sees the hours of focus. Nobody hears the internal discipline. Nobody witnesses the decisions not to react, not to quit, not to distract oneself. Silence holds all of that. It also protects you from ego-driven mistakes. Ego wants recognition before readiness. It wants rewards before responsibility. Silence keeps ego in check. It reminds you that growth matters more than image. This humility keeps you learning. A silent person never stops learning. They listen more than they speak. They ask better questions internally. They reflect instead of defending. This mindset accelerates mastery, and mastery attracts success naturally. Silence also helps you conserve emotional energy. Emotional exhaustion is one of the biggest barriers to success. When you are constantly upset, offended, or reactive, your creative and strategic capacity shrinks. Silence stabilizes emotions. It creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, intelligence operates. This emotional intelligence becomes a competitive advantage. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of explode. You observe instead of assume. These small shifts create massive differences over time. Success is built on these differences. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you regain authority over your direction. Explanation invites debate. Debate invites doubt. Silence closes the loop. You don't owe clarity to those who are not walking your path. This realization is freeing. It allows you to move without seeking approval, to change without justification, to grow without announcement. And as you move quietly, progress becomes visible. The world often rewards those who appear confident. But real confidence is silent. It does not need to prove itself. It does not compete. It does not rush. Silent confidence feels inevitable, and inevitability attracts success. This is how silence becomes a magnet, not by doing less but by aligning more, not by hiding but by focusing, not by withdrawing but by centering. When you master silence, success stops feeling distant. It feels cooperative. It flows toward you because you are no longer blocking it with noise, fear, or distraction. You are ready to receive, and when success arrives, it stays because it was built on clarity, not chaos. Most people believe that effort means pushing. They believe that if something is not happening, they must force it harder, faster, louder. This belief creates struggle, and struggle creates resistance. Silence introduces a different intelligence, the intelligence of flow. Flow is not passive. It is not waiting without movement. Flow is moving in harmony with life instead of against it. When you stop forcing outcomes, you begin to notice how much energy was wasted on tension. Tension in your thoughts, tension in your body, tension in your expectations. Silence releases that tension. It loosens the grip you hold on how things must happen. The moment you loosen your grip, life breathes again. Forcing comes from fear. Fear of missing out, fear of falling behind, fear of losing control. Silence exposes these fears gently. It does not fight them. It observes them, and observation weakens fear's authority. When you are silent, you realize that urgency was never necessary. Most deadlines were imagined. Most pressure was internal. Most stress came from believing that everything depended on you. Silence corrects that illusion. You begin to understand that life has its own timing. Not slow, not fast, precise. And when you cooperate with timing instead of resisting it, things begin to line up naturally. This is where effort transforms. Effort no longer feels heavy. It feels clean. You still take action, but action becomes intentional. You stop doing things just to feel busy. You stop filling time to avoid stillness. Every move has purpose. Purpose reduces exhaustion. Silence helps you distinguish between movement and progress. Many people move constantly but go nowhere. Silence pauses movement just long enough to reveal direction. Direction is everything. When you know where you are going, you don't rush, you don't panic, you don't overcorrect. You trust the path. You adjust gently instead of reacting dramatically. This trust creates inner stability. Inner stability changes how life responds to you. Situations stop feeling chaotic. Even uncertainty feels manageable. You stop asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" Silence shifts perspective. In flow, you stop resisting discomfort. You understand that discomfort often precedes growth. You don't label it as failure. You don't try to escape it immediately. You stay present. Presence shortens struggle. When you stay present, solutions emerge organically. Not because you forced them, but because you allowed space for them to surface. Silence gives your subconscious room to work. Your mind is always solving problems beneath awareness. Noise interrupts this process. Silence completes it. This is why clarity often arrives unexpectedly while walking, resting, or doing nothing important. Flow requires emptiness. Emptiness is misunderstood. It is not lack, it is availability. When your schedule is too full, life cannot enter. When your mind is too loud, guidance cannot be heard. When your emotions are too charged, wisdom cannot land. Silence makes you available. Available for insight. Available for opportunity. Available for alignment. Alignment feels effortless not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening in the right order. In flow, you stop clinging to outcomes. You understand that attachment distorts judgment. You still desire, but you no longer grip. You allow desire to guide action, not consume it. This creates emotional freedom. You no longer feel crushed by delays. You no longer feel euphoric over small wins. Your emotional range stabilizes. You enjoy success without anxiety and face setbacks without collapse. This balance keeps you moving. Flow also teaches you when to rest. Silence reconnects you with your body's signals. Fatigue stops being ignored. Burnout stops being glorified. Rest becomes strategic, not guilty. Rest is part of flow. When you rest without resistance, productivity improves. Creativity deepens, motivation resets. Silence makes rest feel safe, and safety restores energy. In flow, you stop micromanaging life. You release the need to control every variable. You accept uncertainty as part of intelligence. You realize that control was never the source of security. Awareness was. Awareness replaces control. With awareness, you notice when to say yes and when to say no. You stop overcommitting. You stop draining yourself for approval. You choose alignment over obligation. This choice simplifies life. Simplicity creates space. Space creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence in flow feels different from forced confidence. It is quiet. It is steady. It does not need reinforcement. It trusts itself. This trust reduces friction in relationships, work, and decisions. Conversations feel easier. Choices feel cleaner. Life feels less heavy. Flow removes unnecessary weight. You also stop interpreting every obstacle as a sign to quit. Silence teaches you discernment. Some resistance is redirection. Some resistance is refinement. Some resistance is simply life-testing commitment. Flow allows you to feel the difference. You don't push blindly. You don't stop prematurely. You move intelligently. Intelligence feels effortless because it wastes nothing. Silence also dissolves impatience. Impatience comes from believing that happiness exists only in the future. Flow reconnects you with the present. The present becomes sufficient. Not perfect, but sufficient. And sufficiency is powerful. When you stop needing life to change immediately, life relaxes around you. Resistance fades. Cooperation begins. This is when things start happening without strain. People come into your life naturally. Ideas connect without force. Opportunities appear without obsession. You begin to trust that what is meant to reach you will do so at the right moment. Flow restores faith. Not blind faith, but experiential trust. Trust built from noticing patterns, timing, and alignment repeatedly working in your favor once you stopped interfering. Silence trains this trust daily. As you continue flowing instead of forcing, you realize something subtle but profound. Life was never against you. It was responding to your tension. When tension dissolves, life opens. You become lighter, clearer, more receptive, less reactive. Flow becomes your natural state. And from this state, effort no longer feels like struggle. It feels like participation, like cooperation, like movement with meaning. This is the art of letting life flow. And once you learn it, you never return to force again. Abundance does not begin in the outside world. It begins as an internal state. Most people chase abundance as if it exists somewhere ahead of them, separate, distant, conditional. They believe that once they have more money, more security, more recognition, then they will feel calm, fulfilled, and free. But this belief reverses the natural order. Silence restores the correct order. When you become silent, you stop broadcasting lack. You stop mentally shouting what you don't have, what you fear losing, and what you believe is missing. Noise amplifies scarcity, silence softens it, and when scarcity softens, abundance finds room to enter. Abundance is attracted to wholeness, not neediness. In stillness, you recognize what is already working. You notice resources that were previously ignored. You feel gratitude without forcing it. Not the performative kind, but the quiet recognition that you are supported more than you realized. Gratitude changes frequency. When your inner state shifts from chasing to appreciating, your relationship with abundance transforms. You stop demanding, you start allowing. And allowing is the doorway. Silence helps you release the unconscious belief that you must struggle to deserve more. Struggle is deeply ingrained. Many people equate hardship with worthiness. Silence questions this belief gently. You begin to see that ease is not laziness. Ease is alignment. Abundance flows most naturally when effort is clean and intention is clear. Noise contaminates intention. Silence purifies it. You act because it feels right, not because you are afraid of falling behind. Fear blocks abundance. In silence, fear loses its grip. You notice how often fear was disguised as ambition. How many goals were driven by insecurity instead of inspiration? Stillness separates the two. This separation is freeing. When fear dissolves, abundance stops feeling threatening. You no longer worry about losing it before it arrives. You trust your capacity to sustain it. You feel grounded enough to hold more without panic. This inner stability is rare. Most people repel abundance not because they are unworthy, but because they are unprepared. Silence prepares you. It strengthens your nervous system. It trains your mind to remain calm even as things expand. Calm is abundance's natural partner. When you are calm, you make better financial decisions. You choose long-term stability over short-term excitement. You invest wisely, not only money, but time and attention. Attention is currency. Silence teaches you to spend attention deliberately. You stop wasting it on comparison, resentment, and worry. You redirect it toward growth, learning, and presence. This redirection multiplies returns. Abundance also includes time, and silence gives you time back. Time previously spent explaining, defending, reacting, and stressing is reclaimed. You begin to experience days as spacious rather than rushed. Spaciousness is a form of wealth. When time expands, creativity deepens. Ideas are no longer forced. They arrive whole. Solutions feel intuitive. You begin to trust your own intelligence again. Trust increases capacity. Abundance requires capacity, the ability to receive without overwhelm. Silence increases that capacity. It teaches you how to hold more without losing yourself. Many people sabotage abundance because expansion feels unsafe. Silence makes safety internal, not dependent on circumstances. Internal safety is powerful. When you feel safe inside, you are no longer controlled by external conditions. Ups and downs stop defining your worth. Success does not inflate you. Loss does not collapse you. This emotional balance stabilizes abundance. Silence also removes envy. Envy thrives in noise and comparison. Stillness dissolves it naturally. You stop measuring your life against others because you are too connected to your own. Connection replaces competition. When competition fades, cooperation increases. Opportunities multiply through relationships that feel mutual, not transactional. Abundance begins to circulate rather than accumulate. Circulation sustains wealth. You start giving differently, not to prove generosity, but because overflow feels natural. Giving no longer feels like loss. It feels like movement. Movement keeps abundance alive. Silence also changes how you define success. It becomes less about accumulation and more about alignment, less about display and more about depth. Depth is richness. A rich life feels full even when simple. Silence reveals this truth clearly. You enjoy moments without documenting them. You value peace without needing validation. This simplicity attracts more. Life responds generously to those who are not grasping. When you stop clinging, abundance approaches willingly. When you stop demanding, it offers freely. This is not mystical thinking. It is psychological and energetic reality. Silence recalibrates your expectations. You stop expecting struggle. You stop anticipating loss. You begin expecting cooperation. Expectation shapes experience. As this expectation stabilizes, abundance becomes consistent rather than chaotic. Peaks and valleys smooth out. You feel supported instead of constantly uncertain. Support feels effortless. You also begin to notice abundance beyond money, health improving, relationships deepening, clarity strengthening, peace becoming normal. These forms of abundance reinforce each other. When one area stabilizes, others follow. Silence allows you to receive without guilt. You no longer question whether you deserve good things. You understand that worth is not earned through suffering. This realization is liberating. Liberation attracts more freedom. Abundance then stops being a goal and becomes a state, something you carry rather than chase, something that flows through you rather than sits outside you. Silence anchors this state, and once anchored, abundance no longer feels fragile. It feels sustainable, calm, cooperative. This is the kind of abundance that stays. Silence is no longer something you practice. It becomes something you are. At this stage, silence is not effortful restraint or conscious discipline. It is your natural state. You do not silence yourself to appear wise or controlled. You are silent because nothing inside you is demanding to be proven. This is where true power settles. When silence becomes embodied, your life simplifies in ways others may not immediately understand. You no longer feel pulled to every conversation, every debate, every emotional ripple around you. Not because you are disconnected, but because you are centered. Centered people are selective. You choose where to place your energy. You choose which thoughts deserve attention. You choose which emotions deserve expression. This selectivity is not coldness. It is self-respect. Self-respect creates authority. Authority does not announce itself. It does not explain. It does not rush to correct misunderstandings. It stands calmly in truth and allows reality to adjust around it. At this level, silence is not avoidance. It is clarity. You see clearly enough to know what matters and what does not. You stop confusing urgency with importance. You stop mistaking noise for relevance. Life becomes quieter, but fuller. You begin to notice how much of your old behavior was driven by unconscious fear. Fear of being overlooked. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being left behind. Silence dissolves these fears not by fighting them, but by outgrowing them. When you no longer fear absence, presence becomes effortless. You stop forcing yourself into spaces where you do not belong. You stop shrinking yourself where you are meant to expand. Silence guides you intuitively to the right environments, the right people, the right pace. This guidance feels subtle, but it is consistent. As you embody silence, your reactions soften. Things that once triggered you now pass through without disturbance, not because you are numb, but because you understand impermanence. Everything passes, praise passes, criticism passes, loss passes, success passes. Silence teaches you not to cling to any of it. Non-attachment is freedom. With non-attachment, you move fluidly through life. You adapt without losing identity. You change without losing direction. You grow without abandoning yourself. This adaptability makes you resilient. Resilience born from silence does not harden you. It softens you. You become flexible rather than rigid, open rather than defensive, curious rather than threatened. Curiosity replaces judgment. You listen more deeply now, not to respond, but to understand. Conversations slow down around you. People feel seen and heard without knowing why. Your presence becomes grounding. Presence is influence. You influence without persuasion. You inspire without instruction. You lead without command. This quiet influence is powerful because it feels safe. People trust what feels safe. Silence also transforms how you experience solitude. Being alone no longer feels empty. It feels nourishing. You stop seeking constant stimulation. You enjoy simplicity. Simplicity restores depth. In simplicity, you rediscover joy in small things. Breathing, walking, observing, existing without agenda. These moments refill you more than excitement ever did. Stillness becomes medicine. As silence integrates into your life, you notice that effort continues to decrease. Not because you stop working, but because resistance dissolves. You stop working against yourself. Internal alignment reduces friction. Decisions become easier. You don't overthink. You don't spiral. You feel the answer before you analyze it. This feeling is not impulse. It is coherence. Coherence means your thoughts, emotions, and actions are aligned. Alignment creates momentum. Momentum built from alignment does not feel rushed. It feels steady. Sustainable, you move forward consistently without burnout. Burnout belonged to the old way. In this new state, rest and action coexist naturally. You rest without guilt. You act without pressure. You trust your rhythm becomes sacred. Silence teaches you to protect this rhythm. You say no without explanation. You leave situations without drama. You disengage without resentment. Boundaries become quiet. Quiet boundaries are strong boundaries. They do not provoke resistance because they do not invite negotiation. You stop explaining your choices to people who cannot feel your truth. Truth does not require defense. As silence deepens, your relationship with time changes. Time slows. Moments stretch. You stop feeling chased by the future. Presence expands time. You realize that peace was never missing. It was postponed. Silence brings it into the present. Peace becomes your baseline. From this baseline, you act with clarity. You speak with intention. You move with awareness. Life begins responding differently to you, not dramatically, but consistently. Consistency is power. Opportunities continue to flow, but you no longer cling to them. Success arrives, but it does not define you. Abundance circulates, but it does not control you. You are free within it. Freedom within success is rare. Many people achieve outcomes but lose themselves. Silence ensures you remain intact. Integrity becomes effortless. You no longer betray yourself for approval. You no longer compromise values for speed. You choose alignment over advantage. Alignment always wins long term. Silence also sharpens compassion. You judge less because you understand more. You see fear beneath behavior, pain beneath anger, confusion beneath noise. Understanding softens you, but softness does not mean weakness. It means strength without hostility. You become strong enough to be gentle. Gentleness is confidence. As this confidence stabilizes, you realize something profound. You were never meant to chase life. Life responds to presence, not pursuit. You stop running, and when you stop running, life catches up. Effortlessness becomes normal. Not because nothing challenges you, but because challenges no longer shake your foundation. Your foundation is silence. This silence does not isolate you from the world. It connects you to it more honestly. You participate without losing yourself. You engage without being consumed. Balance becomes natural, and in this balance life flows to you, not as a reward, not as luck, but as a reflection of your inner state. You became silent, not to disappear, but to align. You became still, not to stop, but to move correctly. You became quiet, not to hide, but to hear. And now, life listens. Everything you once tried to force now approaches gently. Everything you once feared losing now feels secure. Everything you once chased now flows naturally. This is not an ending. It is a return to clarity, a return to presence, a return to yourself. And from here, everything flows effortlessly.